And we are live. Welcome to another episode of AB Tribe Quick Talk. Your boy is back and we ain't holding nothing back. We're going to dive into something that's been on my mind, something that got people all across this state asking some serious questions. Why is New York shutting down so many prisons? And what's really going on behind the scenes? Now, when I first heard about Governor Kathy Hochul and the state pushing to close down more correctional facilities, I was like, hold up, is this a good thing for public safety? But then I started digging, doing my homework, and the picture got a little clearer. See, New York State got a few reasons why they shutting down more prisons. For one, our prison population dropped like crazy. We're talking more than 50% since 1999. That's a huge deal. Back in the day, we had the Rockefeller drug laws that locked up a lot of people for decades, even for minor drug charges. That filled up prisons, fueled racial disparities, and tore families apart. But since they finally started dismantling those laws in 2009 and pushed for treatment instead of just throwing people in a cage, things started to shift. People are getting help, not just handcuffs. And guess what? It actually made our communities a little safer. So with fewer people in prison, a lot of these facilities are practically empty. We're talking places running at less than half capacity, with more staff walking the halls than inmates. And if you got a ton of correctional officers for only a few prisoners, that's just a waste of taxpayer money, right? They also tell us that they're targeting prisons with a bad rep for abuse, misconduct, or just not meeting health and safety standards. Places that have seen some real messed up stuff go down. Shutting those is a no-brainer. They say this saves the state hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Plus, all the staff at these closing prisons are being offered jobs at other facilities, and the inmates are getting moved to better, often more modern places nearby. Sounds good on paper, right? Saves money, helps with staffing shortages, no jobs lost, almost too good to be true. Now here's where I start seeing more cons than pros with this whole thing, because while the state's talking about savings and efficiency, real people and real communities are getting hit, especially in those small rural towns upstate. First off, this is shaking up whole communities. When a prison closes, it's not just a building. For decades, these prisons have been the lifeline of some of these small towns. They were the main employer, offering good paying jobs that kept families afloat. When that goes away, it's like ripping the heart out of a community. People are being forced to relocate, uproot their entire lives, pull their kids out of school just to keep their jobs, and not everyone could do that. It means some towns are shrinking, their local businesses drying up because there's no one left to spend money. I'm talking about places where the local pizza joint or the diner relied on those prison paychecks. Now they are struggling or even closing down. The state says no job losses, they will offer transfers. But imagine being told to pack up your entire family and move hours away for a job you have had for years. It's not that simple, especially when the number of available jobs at nearby facilities doesn't even come close to the number of jobs lost in your town. It's causing massive stress for hundreds of families, and it's leaving these communities wondering if they will ever bounce back. And that brings me to my second major concern. What happens to these massive abandoned prison buildings? We're talking about huge structures, sometimes on hundreds of acres, just sitting there. Once the door is closed, there's often no clear plan for what comes next. Residents and local leaders are left scratching their heads, wondering, are these places just gonna become abandoned monuments to a forgotten era? How long would it take to turn them into something useful, if ever? Our governor, Kathy Hochul, has thrown out the idea of turning some of these into housing to help with New York's housing crisis. On paper, it sounds like a creative solution, right? Take these big empty spaces and put people in them. But let's be real, turning an old prison into a comfortable home for families, that's a whole different ball game. I'm not sure if New Yorkers want to see massive, grim-looking prison buildings just converted into big tower NYCHA buildings, like some of the old towers that caused more problems than they solved. Now, to be fair, they are trying some new things, like the downstate correctional facility. They are working to turn that into a mix of housing with community spaces, playgrounds, and even walking trails. And a former women's prison in the city is becoming affordable housing with an art center. So yes, they are trying to do something constructive. But here's the catch. Converting these places is a massive undertaking. It's expensive, it's complicated, and for some rural locations, even if you build housing, you still need to think about schools, hospitals, public transit, and grocery stores. Can these communities even support a sudden influx of new residents? And then there's the legal side. Some of these properties need special permission to be repurposed. It's not just a quick fix, it's a heavy lift. And for so many of these empty prisons, there's still no plan at all. Finally, and this is the one that really gets under my skin, where is all this saved money actually going? The state talks about saving hundreds of millions a year by shutting these places down. We're talking about nearly $500 million annually from the prisons closed between 2011 and 2022, and they're looking to save even more. But then you look around and you gotta ask, where's the improvement? Here's the real talk. While the state claims these massive savings, much of that money isn't being reallocated to new programs. It's often getting swallowed up by rising operational costs within the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. We're talking increased salaries, benefits, and massive overtime bills for the remaining officers. In some cases, they even hired more officers while the inmate population was still dropping. The budget for the prison system itself hasn't gone down as much as the inmate numbers, which makes you wonder about those savings. Imagine what we could do if that money actually got spread throughout the state. Think about improving our rail transportation. You know how crazy is it trying to get around New York, especially getting in and out of the city? Pouring money into our trains can make it easier for millions of New Yorkers to access the whole state, connecting communities and boosting local economies. What about places like Rochester, Albany, and Poughkeepsie? These cities once flourished. They were powerhouses, and now many are in decay. We could take those savings and truly invest in them. Infrastructure, job programs, schools, cultural hubs. Give these cities a real shot at a comeback. Help them rise up again. So when the state says they are saving money, it often means they're just preventing the budget from increasing even more, not necessarily freeing up cash to pour into critical projects or support minimum wage workers who are still struggling. It makes you question the real intention behind these closures and whether the state is truly helping community investment or just keeping their own house in order. But that's all I got for you. Don't forget to drop a like, a subscribe, a comment, a share, do all that good stuff for me. Until next time.